Welcome to Recap Mystery. The movie began in 2154. The Resources Development Administration, or RDA, hires Jack Sully, a paraplegic and former Marine. His twin brother Tom, who worked for the RDA, was killed, and they now need Jake to replace him for the Avatar program on the planet Pandora because he is Tom's twin and his genome is the only Onia that can activate Tom's avatar. Jake agrees and is placed in a cryo-sleep chamber, where he will sleep for nearly 6 years while the crew travels to the planet. When Jake arrives, he meets the Avatar program's head and team, Dr. Grace Augustin, and Dr. Norm Spellman, who was also a friend of Tom. He discovers that Pandora's atmosphere is toxic to humans and that the land is ruled by a species known as the Navi, which are 10-foot-tall blue-skinned humanoids who worship the Mother Nature goddess Iwa. In order to explore the land, humans temporarily transfer their consciousness to avatars, a human-Navi hybrid created by humans that can only be activated by its biological owner. For the first time, Jake and Norm enter their avatar bodies, and Jake is overjoyed to be able to walk and run for the first time in years. He is then introduced to Colonel Miles Quaritch by Atrudy, a combat pilot assigned to the Avatar team. Colonel Quaritch strikes a deal with Jake. He will join the Avatar team on their expeditions in exchange for reporting everything he knows about the Navi and their home tree, which contains the most unobtainium on Pandora. The RDA is mining the mineral to bring back and sell on Earth, and the Colonel will ensure that the company funds Jack's leg's replacement. Jake concurs. He joins Grace and Norm on their research expedition as their escort. While the scientists are looking for samples, a vicious beast known as the Thanator attacks Jake, tearing him away from the rest of the group. He barely escapes with his life and is soon abandoned in a jungle, struggling to survive, until he is rescued by a female Navy officer named Neytiri. Neytiri is drawn to Jake's bravery, but she believes he is too stupid and naive. Seeds from the spirit tree land on Jake, and Neytiri interprets this as a sign that he should be taken to her clan, the Omaticai. The heir to the chieftainship and Natar's fiancé, is especially hostile to him. Jake meets Itaknand Ma'at, the clan's chief and priestess, who also happen to be Neytiri's parents. Ma'at decides to take Jake in and have Neytiri teach him their ways of life. After much deliberation, Jake settles in for the night with the clan and is immediately recalled to the Avatar Stimulator. He informs Grace and Colonel Quaritch of everything he has learned. The Colonel gives Jake 3 months to persuade the Navy to relocate or they will bomb their home tree. Grace becomes suspicious of Jake's dealings with the Colonel, so she relocates the team to a remote outpost in Pandora's floating mountains. Neytiri spends the next 3 months teaching Jake the ways of the Navi. She tells Jake that when he is ready, he must choose his own Ukran, a winged beast that the novice used to hunt, and he will finally become a warrior. Jake learns to track and hunt wildlife while also beginning to understand the spiritual connection that exists between all of Pandora's beings. Jake soon becomes sympathetic to the Navi and falls in love with Neytiri. After his first clean kill, Neytiri, City, and other Navi travel to the floating mountains in search of their own Ikran. City orders Jake to choose first when they arrive at the Ikran's nest. To choose one, Ikran must first choose him by attempting to kill him. He kills one of the beasts and bonds with it via the nerve endings in his hair. Neytiri pushes them off the cliff, forcing Jake to fly with his Ikran in order to strengthen their bond. While flying their Ikran, Jake and Neytiri come face to face with the Toryuk, a mighty dragon-like beast that the Navi fear and worship. Only 5 Navi have ever tamed and ridden the Toryuk, including Neytiri's great-grandfather. The 3 months are up, and the team returns to the facility. Colonel Quaritch issues the ultimatum to Jake, but he requests an extension only until his final ceremony, after which he will become one of them and can persuade them to relocate. Jake is finally accepted into the Omaticai clan on the day of the ceremony, and now that he is one of them, Neytiri takes Jake into the Tree of Souls. The Tree of Souls is one of the Navi's most sacred places, where their ancestors' memories are kept. They can access these memories by connecting their nerve endings to the tree's fibers. It is also one of the locations with the most unobtainable uranium deposits. Neytiri informs Jake that he can now choose a wife. Jake then proposes to Neytiri, who accepts happily. In the eyes of their goddess Iwa, the two kiss and connect their nerve endings under the Tree of Souls, binding themselves to each other for the rest of their lives. As dawn breaks, Neytiri is awakened by the sounds of a large machine tearing up the Tree of Souls, which has come from the RDA. Neytiri tries to wake Jake, but he is currently unconscious due to the stimulation. When Jake awakens, he sees a frantic Neytiri dragging him away. He tells the bulldozer to stop, but it keeps plowing. He then climbs the machina and begins destroying the cameras, but the crew fires back. They flee, leaving Neytiri sobbing as the machines demolish their sacred site. Meanwhile, the RDA records Jake destroying the cameras and is able to identify him. Jake and Neytiri return to the clan's home tree, where he attempts to persuade it to relocate for the clan's safety. City accuses Jake of having an affair with his betrothed. Neytiri admits to this and claims that it is irreversibly because they are now bonded before Iwa. Norm tries to stop the soldiers from removing Jakia and Grace from the simulators at their outpost, but it's too late. Jake seizes the opportunity to make his final plea, but he and Grace pass out before he can finish. They are returned to the facility, and Jake's true allegiance is revealed via a video log in which he states that the Navi will never give up their home. Colonel Quaritch decides to cut the cord and bomb the Navi away from the family tree. Grace then informs the company that they cannot destroy the home tree because it will destroy Pandora's biological neural network. The synapses link them all together like a massive brain. The RDA is not completely convinced, but agrees to give the team 1 hour to persuade the Omatic AI to move. Grace and Jake reawaken in their avatar forms, and Jake begins telling them about the RDA's plans. He then admits that he was sent there as a spy, but that things have changed since then. Neytiri, hurt by his betrayal, lashes out at him and flees. Jake and Grace are then kidnapped. The RDA dispatches hovercrafts to the home tree and begins gassing them. The Omatic AI fights back, refusing to flee, but their arrows are useless against the heavy steel of the crafts. The missiles are then fired by the hovercrafts at the natives and the home tree. The tree immediately catches fire as the Navy flee for their lives. Jack and Gracia are chained to their post, unable to flee until Maud arrives. She releases them, telling Thema that if they are indeed one of them, they should assist them. The firing continues at the roots of the home tree, eventually breaking the trunk. The home tree collapses, crushing 100 Navisa to death on the ground. Neytiri searches for survivors and comes across her father, who has a shard lodged in his chest. With his dying breath, he bestows his bow and arrows on her and makes her promise to carry out her responsibilities. Jakes discovers her in the rubble, but Neytiri pushes him away, telling him not to return. Jake and Grace are taken out of the simulation once more and arrested at the facility, while Jake's avatar body collapses among the debris. Trudy breaks the avatar team out of their cell. They hijack one of the helicopters and flee, but Grace is hit in the stomach. Jake stitches her up as they return to their original outpost, which they relocated higher up the mountain to where the RDA can't easily reach it. Jake returns to simulation and devises a strategy. Once in his avatar form, he summons his Akron. Jake is aware that the Omatic AI will only listen to him in one of two ways. They work together to find the Toryuk, with nowhere else to go. The Omatic AI are forced to seek refuge at the last remaining soul tree. They hear a strong gust of wind behind him and gasp in horror as they see the Toryuk flying towards them as they wait for an answer to their prayers. When it lands, Neytiri is surprised to see that Jake has managed to tame the mighty beast. The Navi are impressed and awed by this feat. Sadia agrees to join Jake in the fight against the humans when Jake asks him. Jake then approaches the Navi and begs them to save her life. He transports her human body, along with Hera avatar body, to the Tree of Souls, and the clan performs a ritual in an attempt to transfer Grace's consciousness into her avatar form. Grace's wound was too deep, and she died before the ritual could be completed. But Jake is well aware that the battle is far from over. Together with Sati, they rally the Omatakai and then travel to neighboring clans, enlisting Navi from the plains, seas, and mountains to fight for their homes. By the end of the day, they'd amassed over 2,000 Navi at the Tree of Souls. When Jake learns of the RDA's plans to bomb the Tree of Souls, he devises a strategy to lure them through the floating mountains and attack them there before they reach the sacred site. Jake seeks guidance from Iowa at the Tree of Souls. As dawn breaks, the RDA launches the hovercrafts and bombs, and the Navi clans await them among the floating mountains. Not long after, the Plains clans take command of the machine suit surveying the grounds. The Navi opened fire, flying around the hovercrafts and shooting them down with their arrows. They were able to down a few helicopters, but the company's armory is far too powerful. They open fire on the Navi with their guns, killing a large number of them. Colonel Querch notices Jake on Theatoruk and begins shooting at him. Jake flees the firing line, drawing Thea Colonel's hovercraft deeper into the mountains. Suddenly, Trudy and her helicopter arrive, and she fires at the Colonel, allowing Jake to flee. Meanwhile, Neytiri's icon is removed, and Shay falls to the ground, witnessing the devastation caused by humans. Sati performs a heroic act against the main hovercraft, rescuing a number of men, unloading the bombs before being gunned down and falling to the ground. The Navi are overwhelmed, and as they retreated deeper into the forest, the hovercrafts detect a different movement. Various Pandorian wildlife charge at the machines in a matter of seconds as the Ikran overtakes the skies, destroying the remaining craft. Neytiri interprets this as an offer of assistance from Iwa. Jake then lands on the main hovercraft transporting the bombs and destroys its machine guns. He expertly runs around the craft, dodging fire, and launches a grenade at one of the engines. The craft crashes and explodes among the mountains. He fires more grenades at the Colonel's craft, but Querich escapes using a mechanical suit. The grenades detonate, and Jake is thrown back into the air before landing on the ground. The Colonel survives the blow and begins hunting down the outpost. Querich arrives at the simulators just as Neytiri launches herself at him. Querich drags her down and traps her beneath a tree's trunks. Jake appears and fights him as he is about to stab her. Jake manages to keep him at bay by breaking his knife and the protective glass around his suit. The Colonel gasps for air and then turns his attention to Jake's actual body. He smashes the outpost's glass and destroys the simulators. As the Colonel drags his body, Jake stabs him in the neck. Neytiri breaks free and fires an arrow straight into the Colonel's heart. She fires another arrow to complete the kill. Meanwhile, Jake emerges from the simulator, dragging his body to reach for the air mask, but the poisonous air knocks him out and prevents him from breathing. Neytiri realizes what's going on and climbs inside the outpost to put Jack's air mask on. She sees his true body for the first time, and they embrace. Jake and Neytiri return to their avatar form to find Sati, who begs Jake to kill him in order for him to die a noble death. Sati acknowledges Jake as his brother and hands over the chieftainship to him as he breathes his last. Jake accepts it gratefully. The war is now over, and the Navi have triumphed. The facility is destroyed, and the humans are sent back to Earth on their ships. Jake, Norm, and a few other humans are allowed to stay by the Navi. Jake has been named the new chief of the Omatakai clan. On his new birthday, he is led to the Tree of Souls by Neytiri, where they perform a ritual that transfers his consciousness to his new avatar body. After successfully driving humans back to Earth, Now the Navis are returning to continue their lives peacefully on Pandora. Jake Sully recounts his life since joining the Navi as chief of the Auspicious clan, Nadiam, Loak, and two Karhisa and Neytiri's adopted children, along with Kiri, the biological daughter of Grace Augustine's Navia avatar. The children also spend time with Spider, a human boy who was left behind with the Humana scientists after the previous group evacuated Pandora because babies could not be cryostasis. While the children see Spider as something of a cousin, Neytiri feels the boy would be better off with other humans, in part due to her own hatred of the Sky People. While everything appears to be perfect, Jake's happiness is quickly shattered when RDA ship shuttles begin to descend on Pandora, destroying vast areas of the forest and killing the wildlife. Jake and Neytiri get their children and the other Navi to safety, but Jack holds his wife as they watch the devastation left behind in horror. Colonel Miles Quaritch awakens 1 year later, resurrected in his own avatar body. Quaritch quickly realizes what happened after watching a video log he left himself before their previous attempted mission to tear down the Navi's Tree of Souls before he and his team were all killed while attacking his former teammates, all now in their own Navi skins. Quaritch decides to lead a team back onto Pandora with one goal in mind: to kill Jake. The RDA has colonized Pandora and established a mining base as well as the settlement of Bridgehead City. Jake leads a group of Navi in flying Theraicrons to attack human aircraft and supply lines. Nadiam and Loak try to join the fight, but are severely injured in the process. Jake rescues them but chastises them for putting themselves in a danger. The group rejoins the rest of the clan at their camp. Jake and Neytiri talk about how the sea changes are affecting their children's lives. Meanwhile, Spider follows Loak and Kiri to the Human Research Facility, where Norm Spellman and Max Patel are still working. Kiri converses with the Grace's avatar while her body is in the tank. Spider then observes that his Navi friends ought to at least know who their parents are, whereas he knows and resents Quaritch's father. Quaritch and his team arrive at their base and are greeted by General Francis Ardmore, Edie Falco, who provide us an update on their operations since his death. Ardmore informs them of the Auspicious' advantages over them before telling them how they can gain their own advantage. The team arrives in the forest at the same time as Jack's children and Spider. While Kiri is lost in nature, the other kids notice Quaritch and his team surveying the former Link unit for humans and their avatars. He discovers his skeleton inside the AMP suit in which he was murdered. The villains discover the children and realize they are Jake's children, because they have 5 fingers. When Quaritch meets Spider, he discovers he is the boy's father. Quaritch summons Ardmore and her team to calm down while he holds the other kids hostage. Jake and Neytiri are summoned to the scene, and both are taken aback to see their archenemy alive and in a Navi body. Before they open a fire, Neytiri kills some of Quaritch's team. She and Jake are able to reclaim their children, but Quaritch and his surviving teammates retreat, taking Spider with them. Ardmore tortures the boy in order to extract information about the clan's location, but Quaritch intervenes and chooses to get closer to Spider in order to gain his trust. He persuades Spider to accompany him on their mission, or the scientists will experiment on him. Jake tells Neytiri that they must leave the clan now that they are being hunted. While Neytiri is reluctant to leave her home, Jake assures her that it is in their children's and the clan's best interests. He hands over command to another warrior, Tarsum, and departs the clan with Neytiri and their children. They fly their Akrana toward the eastern seaboard, to the Metkaina clan of Navi. Tanawari, the clan's leader, and his pregnant wife, Ronald, have gathered the clan. Jake requests shelter for the sake of his family, but Ronald and other tribesmen are quick to dismiss Jake and his children due to their half-Humana heritage and the risk of bringing their dangers to this land. Tanawari, on the other hand, respects the Toryukmakto's accomplishment and allows them to stay. He also instructs his children Onan and Atsiria to teach Jake's children how to adapt to their oceanic surroundings. Quaritch and his team lead Spider through the forest, with Spider acting as a translator for the Navi language, which the team is still learning. Quaritch is also able to connect with his own Akron, albeit more forcefully than the Omaticaya. Jake's children join Onan and Syria, as well as Onan's friend Roxoa, Dwayne Evans, Jr., on their exploration of that reef. Syria demonstrates that they communicate with underwater creatures using sign language and connect to them in the same way that the Omaticaya connect to their animals. When Loak tries to connect with a creature, he is dragged through the water and thrown off. Carrie, on the other hand, has a more natural connection with the creaturessa and assists one of them in interacting with Tuk. Jake and Neytiri are shown how to fly the Tsurak, which can move both above and below water. Loak approaches Syria, who demonstrates how to improve his underwater breathing. She also takes him and his sisters deeper underwater by employing creatures that breathe while resting on their backs. However, Onan and Roxo are hostile toward Kiri because she is a half-breed, which leads to Loak punching Onan in the face. A Nadiam joins the fight with Onan's friends, prompting Jake to chastise his sons for their actions. Loak is forced to apologize to Onan by Jake. He does so, and Onan invites Loak to join him and his friends on a hunting expedition. They travel far enough until they trick Loak into pursuing a creature, just as he and his creature are attacked by an Aquila, which kills Loak's mount before pursuing him. Loak tries to swim back up before running out of breath, but the Aquila pursues him until he is saved by Pyakin, a whale-like creature known as a Tulkun. Loak pursues Pyakin and discovers a harpoon lodged in his fin, which he removes and earns Pyakin's trust. Jake speaks with Kiri, who has been feeling strange lately as a result of what she has witnessed. She claims she can feel the mighty heartbeat of their goddess Iwa. Jake assures her that nothing is wrong with her. Tanawari chastises Onan for leading Loak beyond the reef when it is forbidden, but Loak accepts responsibility for everything to keep Onan out of trouble. Jake tells Loak that his actions have embarrassed the family, but Onan grows to respect Loak. Loak tells his siblings, as well as Syria and the other Metkaina, about his meeting with Pyakin, but Syria informs him that Pyakin is an outcast among the other Tulkun. Syria leads the others to the cove of their ancestors, showing them how the land looks during the eclipse. After Loak attempts to communicate with Pyakin to learn more about his history, she also leads them to the Metkaina Tree of Souls. Kiri can see and communicate with Grace after connecting to the tree. Kiri, on the other hand, has a terrible seizure and is brought back to the shore by her siblings. Jake recruits Norm and Max to assist Kiri, but they are ineffective until Ronald tries her hand and successfully revives Kiri. Norm informs Jake that any visions she believes she is seeing are likely the result of frontal lobe epilepsy. Unfortunately, Quaritch's teammate Lyle Wainfleet informs him of a radar picked up from the gunship on which Norm and Max arrived. The villains then meet up with a whaling vessel led by Captain Mick Scoresby and Dr. Ian Garvine to gain an advantage, as they are already looking for anti-aging remedies in Tulkun. The Metkaina, including Ronal and her soul sister Roa, form a bond with their Tulkun. Quaritch and his team arrive soon after. They brutally murder a Tulkun and threaten a Metkaina woman unless Jake and his family's location is revealed. Spider is horrified and tries to persuade his father to stop. The villains then set fire to their trees and homes. Quaritch orders his team to attack in order to attract Jake's attention. Loak tries once more to question Pyakin about what he did to make him an outcast. Pyakin opens his mouth, allowing Loak to enter and connect with him. Loak sees Pyakin's memories and realizes he attacked the whalers because they murdered his mother and family. Loak tries to tell the Metkaina about the new information, but Jack tries to silence him so that they don't further alienate the Metkaina. Loak discusses this with Syria, who believes in him. The whalers launch an attack, launching harpoons loaded with inflatables and piercing the Tulkun's fins, including Roa and her child. Ronal and the other Metkaina arrive after collecting their material from her, and Ronal weeps in agony at the loss of her soul sister and her child. Tanawari and Ronal, along with dozens of enraged Metkaina, lash out at Jack for bringing the villains to their land, as Theia expected. When Jake mentions that the Tulkun will be marked for death by whaler trackers, he instructs the Metkaina to warn the Tulkun before more of them are killed. Despite Nadiem's warnings, Loak goes off to warn Payakan. He is followed by his brother, Syria and Onan, and then Kiri and Tuk. They find Payakan, who has already been tracked. Nadiem alerts Jake, and he and Neytiri set out to rescue their children. The whalers launch their attack, targeting the children and Tulkun. Metkaina warriors join Jake and Neytiri in the fight. The children are taken prisoner on the ship. After being captured during the struggle, Quaritch orders Jake and company to stand down, holding Loak at gunpoint to demonstrate his seriousness. Jake is about to surrender when Payakan notices his soul brother in danger and leaps out of the water, slamming down onto the vessel, taking some whalers with him. The Navi sees this opportunity to charge into battle. They are able to kill the majority of the whalers with the assistance of Payakan and the Metkaina. Scoresby tries to harpoon Payakan, but he wraps the wire around their boat, killing the men and severing Scoresby's arm. Garia manipulates the ocean environment to kill some whalers after the kids escape. Spider, meanwhile, turns against the other humans and returns to his Navi family. Nadiem saves his siblings and their friends during the battle, but he is shot. The family arrives at a rock and attempts to help Nadiem, but he succumbs to his wounds. Neytiri weeps in grief over her son's death, and the rest of the family is devastated. Quaritch contacts Jake, revealing that he is holding Kiri and Tuk as hostages. Jake enters the sinking ship with Neytiri, Spider, and Loak for the final showdown. In retaliation for Nadiem, Neytiri slaughters Quaritch's team ruthlessly. Just as Jack prepares to face his nemesis, Quaritch appears with Garia and a knife to her throat after Jake frees Tuk. Neytiri grabs Spider and threatens him with a death. Despite his attempts to deny his concern for and relationship with the boy, Quaritch relents and lets Kiri go after Neytiri cuts Spider across his chest. Neytiri rescues the children, and Jake decides to fight to the death with Quaritch. The ship begins to sink completely, trapping the family underwater. Jake fights Quaritch until he gets him in a chokehold and allows him to sink underwater. Loak finds his father, who tells him to leave without him because Jake doesn't think he'll make it, but Loak helps him breathe the weight Syria demonstrated, and they escape with Payakan. Meanwhile, Kiri summons the underwater creaturess to assist her in evacuating Neytiri and Tuk. Spider swims to save Quaritch, but he abandons him for his evil deeds and rejoins Jake's family, officially adopting him as a son. Jake is about to bid Tanawari farewell, but he informs him that he and his family are now Metkaina and are welcome to stay. Nadiem's body is then given to the Tree of Souls, and the family is told that he is now with Iwa. Jake and Neytiri connect to the tree, where they can see Nadiem through memories. Recognizing this land as his family's new home, Jake vows to continue fighting and protecting them. Then the movie end. Please subscribe and like the video.